A population is a group of individuals of the same species living in the same general area that have the ability to reproduce. This is a map of leopards, and you can see that they are split into 9 populations. We know these are separate populations because of genetic studies that can identify how much gene flow is occurring. Each population relies on similar resources and are influenced by similar environmental factors. And because of this, each population has started evolving in a different direction. They are starting to look different. Given enough time in isolation, they could become separate species. But for now, we know they are one because zoos sometimes breed individuals from separate populations. In ecology, we are interested in populations because these are fundamental units of species. If our goal is to protect ecosystems, we need to start by knowing what populations are doing. When I say population size, I am referring to the number of individuals in that population. For example, is the population increasing or decreasing? Finding this number isn't easy.
No way! They're going off!
Try to count the number of dolphins in this school. Even with the video, you can only take a guess at how many there are. Rarely is it possible for scientists to count every individual, so they need to subsample the population and estimate its true size. One method for estimating population size is capture, mark, recapture. In this example, we spend day 1 catching snails, and we mark each one we find with a red dot. These snails get released. On day 2, we catch snails again, but only find one snail that we marked the day before. We can use a math equation to calculate the total population. In this case, 8 snails marked times 10 snails caught on day 2 divided by the 1 snail we captured means the population has 80 snails. What if we recaptured more marked snails? Our estimate goes up. What would the population estimate be if we recaptured 6 snails? Now that we have a way to estimate population size, we can examine what happens to populations over time. This is going to require some math. If we want to know the population density, we take the population size and divide it by the area in which the population is found. The song sparrow on the Brown Island has a low population density. There are few individuals within a large space. The song sparrows on the Green Island have a high population density. If we counted 300 song sparrows in a 20-hectare plot, what would the population density be? The factors that determine whether a population is increasing or decreasing are the rates of birth, death, immigration, and emigration. Immigration with an I involves individuals moving into a population from outside, and emigration with an E involves moving out. The rates are simply the numbers divided by the total population size. We often deal with single populations with no immigration or emigration. If we want to estimate the rate of population growth, we take the birth rate and subtract the death rate. Per capita means in relation to the population size. So for example, we can look at overall COVID deaths and see that the United States, Brazil, Mexico, and India are doing the worst. But is that a fair comparison? These countries also have large populations. If we look at the per capita numbers, dividing the number of deaths by the population size, Belgium, Spain, Italy, and the UK are at the top. This is more informative. What do these have in common? All have cities that are international travel hubs. All have unstable governments that have not reached a consensus on how to respond, and all have given mixed messages about public health. Don't get confused by dn by dt. The d there is a symbol for change, and so growth rate can be thought of as population change over time. The AP may use this annotation, or they may simply refer to the growth rate as R. Let's try a problem. A population of 600 sea turtles has a per capita birth rate for 1 year of 0.06. 60 die from predation by birds and crabs, and 12 die from accidentally eating plastic bags that look like jellyfish. What is the per capita growth rate of the population? It turns out population size is quite predictable. In an environment where resources are unlimited, populations experience exponential growth. The human population is currently experiencing exponential growth. There is a formula for this kind of growth, which is a specific case of per capita growth rate, so the same symbols are used. R max is the maximum growth rate, which is the maximum possible number of births and fewest deaths for a population over time. I will say that I have never seen a question on the AP exam that requires this formula, but it is listed as a required content. Exponential growth rarely occurs in nature for long periods because resources are rarely unlimited. One example of this type of growth was seen in elephants at Kruger National Park, South Africa, after the park was created to protect the elephants from hunting. However, the elephants eventually started altering the landscape by destroying forests when the population got too large, and managers decided they needed to start knocking the population back down, trying to stabilize it at 8,000. This is because the elephants had reached their carrying capacity, the population size that an ecosystem can support. If the managers had done nothing, the elephants would have overshot their carrying capacity, started to run out of resources, and die from starvation. Diseases also spread at higher population densities, and predation increases, though elephants are rarely preyed upon. Thus, at carrying capacity, the per capita growth rate approaches zero.
Let's take a look at the carrying capacity of a typical black bear habitat. The black bear habitat limits black bear populations through the influences of shelter, food supply, and social tolerances of the species. Shelter or cover is a prime factor. Black bears need cover for feeding, hiding, bedding, traveling, and raising cubs. With limits of space, adult bears will kill young bears or run them out of an area. These young bears must keep moving around either until they die or until they find an area vacated by the death of an adult. When food supplies are reduced by competition, it becomes very intense. Some adult bears might temporarily move to seldom used areas of their home range, and sometimes many miles away. They must live on what food is available in the area. These individuals may become thin and in poor condition for winter hibernation, or in the case of young bears, be forced from the area by more aggressive adults.
These biotic factors like disease, predation, competition, and resource availability that influence the size and growth of populations which depend on the population density are called density-dependent factors. There are also density-independent factors like pollution, climate, and catastrophes like floods, fires, storms, and natural disasters. These can influence population size and growth, but not in a way that relates to population density. The percentage of mice that die in a forest fire is unrelated to whether the forest has 100 mice living under one tree or 100 mice each living under a different tree. These limits on growth cause the vast majority of populations to experience logistic growth, where the population plateaus after reaching the carrying capacity. The formula for growth rate is modified again to take carrying capacity, K, into account. This model can be used to predict population size over time. When we examine real populations over time, they tend to oscillate, experiencing periods of exponential or logistic growth, followed by crashes, and the pattern repeats itself. We can do more with populations than just predict their size over time. The study of population statistics is called demography, and a table that summarizes demographic data is called a life table. This life table for Belding's ground squirrels shows age and sex-specific data that can be used to understand patterns of survival. Graphing the proportion of surviving individuals of different ages, we see that females live longer than males. This is because males injure themselves fighting over females, and they expose themselves to predation when they disperse in search of female mates. Also notice that this graph, called a survivorship curve, indicates a relatively constant rate of death over time. This indicates that squirrels have a type 2 curve. Humans have a type 1 curve because we take care of our babies and prevent them from dying. Most deaths occur in older individuals. Invertebrates tend to have a type 3 curve, where there is a high mortality for babies, but once they reach a certain age and size, their chances of survival increase significantly. We call species with a type 1 curve K-selected species. They have populations of roughly constant size, low reproduction rates, and offspring that require extensive parental care. Notice that K-selected species tend to have a population that is stable near carrying capacity, hence the K. Birds and most large mammals are K-selected. We call species with a type 3 curve R-selected species. They have populations that fluctuate wildly, high reproduction rates, and offspring that do not require any parental care. R strategists have populations that are determined by Rmax. Bacteria, mice, and fish are R-selected. These evolutionary strategies play a role in conservation because K-selected species will have a harder time recovering from a population crash associated with human exploitation. We might therefore predict that most declining populations are those of mammals and birds, but this isn't what we see. First of all, there are many more R-selected species than K-selected species. Second, we know a lot more about populations of K-selected species because they are bigger and easier to monitor. What is clear from our investigations of species populations is that most are declining, and that the cause is us, primarily through destroying natural environments, clearing land for our own use, and killing organisms directly for food, because we consider them pests or for sport.